Happy Tuesday. I am so glad that you're here. Didn't I tell you that I would get so excited talking about the Holy Spirit last week that I would forget to show you the book again at the end? Well, just in case I get that way again today, here's the book. It's a fantastic book. It's 10 Lessons About the Holy Spirit by Doctors Nathaniel and Alicia Russell. The Gift of the Holy Spirit. It's available on Amazon, and I'm telling you, it is a book that you will not only want to add to your own library, but you will want to bless other people with. It is one that I'm going to read over and over. It has 10 lessons, and so what I did, instead of reading it straight through, I read one lesson a day, because then I was able to think about it, process it, and just really kind of hide it in my heart. Today, I want to talk about the book of Acts. It is probably one of my favorite books of the Bible, besides the Gospels. So the Gospels are made up of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they are the story of Jesus and how he lived here on earth. And that is probably why I absolutely love the Gospels. They show us how to live. Matthew 5-7, which is the Sermon on the Mount. When we put those principles into practice, it builds a wonderful foundation for our lives and it helps us to live very successfully. So that's just one example of the Gospels and why they're so important. But the book of Acts introduces us to the Holy Spirit. And that, I think, is why it's so special to me. Before I really understood how amazing the Holy Spirit was, I used to get sad in the book of Acts, because that's the book where Jesus ascends up into heaven. So after he's raised from the dead and he lives and he communicates and walks around and is with the disciples, excuse me, for 40 days. He then ascends into heaven, where he's waiting until God the Father tells him to come back down to earth, or for the rapture to happen, and he meets us in the clouds. So, but I used to get sad, because I used to think, well, I really want God or Jesus. I don't really want the Holy Spirit. But that was before I understood how amazing the Holy Spirit truly is. When the Pentecost happened, and that's the main theme, or the main event that happens in Acts. It's when Jesus leaves, and then the disciples wait, and they wait a few days, I believe, and then they receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And so I want to make it clear that when you become a believer, when you pray the salvation prayer, the Holy Spirit comes inside of you right then. Like, there's no doubt about that. But the baptism of the Holy Spirit, which in this book, Doctors Nathaniel and Alicia Russell explain it so much better than I am. So read the book. But when the baptism of the Holy Spirit happens, it's kind of like when you're igniting the power of the Holy Spirit inside of you. So he's always been there, but it's just kind of like an igniting. So when you become a believer and you surrender your life to God, you ask Jesus into your heart, you're saved. The Holy Spirit comes. Then when you choose to be baptized, to be immersed underwater, that is your public way of telling people that you have surrendered your life to Jesus. Well, the baptism of the Holy Spirit is a way to ignite the power of the Holy Spirit in your life. And for me, it was a major change. So 10 years ago, we started going to our church home now. And we started attending right around the time of the Pentecost. And I really didn't know anything about the Pentecost. I've already explained that I grew up in a Baptist church, and then I went to a few other churches and other denominations within the Protestant main denomination. And so I never really talked about or understood the Holy Spirit. So when we came here and he was doing a series on the Pentecost, it intrigued me. And he also was giving his testimony. Well, I was sitting in the service, and at the end of one of the Sundays, he invited people to come up and receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit. While I didn't understand what I was doing, I felt compelled by God, nudged, urged, whatever you want to call it, prompted, that I needed to go up there. So while I didn't completely understand what I was doing, I knew that it was a pivotal moment in my Christian walk. I knew that this was something that God was calling me to do, inviting me into. Now, if I had said no, I would have missed a huge blessing, but God wouldn't have cursed me or anything like that. And I'm sure he would have given me the invitation later in life. But I just felt urged and nudged, like I needed to go up there. So I went up, I was baptized by the Holy Spirit. And I have to say, in my own personal life, my own personal testimony, I received more boldness in my faith, more courage with my faith, and God healed me from so many things because of that step of obedience that I took. So I had lived a very fearful life, afraid of a lot of things, and God, in his unconditional love and wisdom, knew that I needed to have these layers taken off of me in a certain way in order for me to live the life of freedom that he's called every believer to live. So the first one was just an overarching fear or anxiety. So God started working with me on that. Well, then I had a fear of winter driving, and without even really asking to be healed from that, because at this point it had been 13 or 14 years since I had had that fear. It had just become my new normal. I couldn't remember life not being afraid of snow. And we live in the Midwest, so it snows from October to April sometimes. And I would just be afraid. I wouldn't want to plan anything. I wouldn't want to go anywhere because heaven forbid there could be a storm and we would all die. I mean, like, that was my mindset. And it was a horrible way to live. It was very captivating, very controlling, very slave-like. So I just remember one day I was driving our kids home from Awana, and I wasn't afraid. It was snowing. There was a ton of snow out. I wasn't like screaming at them to be quiet because I had to hear the tires, which I have no idea why you even listen to the tires. But whatever it is, I wasn't afraid. And ever since then, I have not been afraid of winter driving. Doesn't mean that I love driving in a blizzard, but it means I can drive in a blizzard without that panic attack, I'm going to die feeling. After that, God started to work with me. He urged me or encouraged me to, with my prayer partner, pray for 30 days to heal depression. It took 3 days of praying, and he healed me from my depression, a lifelong depression. Then he showed me that I had seasonal depression, not like seasonal affective disorder, but like holiday depression. We had lost a baby around Christmas. We had lost our beloved dog around Christmas. We lost a beloved aunt around Easter. So lots of losses around holidays. So he healed me from that as well. So for me personally, the book of Acts is so special because it talks about how all of these ordinary people, once they were baptized with the Holy Spirit, they had a boldness and a courage in their faith and for their faith that they hadn't had before. And I think that's why I love it so much. So I would encourage you to read through the book of Acts. Maybe read some of the Gospels first, and then it will lead into the book of Acts better. And then read Romans after that, because it's kind of like a chronological, they all kind of make sense together type of a thing. So that's what I want to leave you with today. I regret ever thinking of the Holy Spirit as the weird uncle at Christmas. He is my favorite uncle, and I know he's not an uncle. He's part of the Trinity. He's part of God, and I highly respect him and give him all the honor that he deserves. But the Holy Spirit has such a special place in the life of a believer that we are really missing out on huge blessings when we don't embrace him and when we don't actively allow him to be a part of our lives the way that he deserves. So if you liked this video, if you could hit the like button, if you would subscribe and share, I would greatly appreciate it. And head on over to my website, SherrySwalwell.com, and you can find out all of the different things I have to offer there. Have a great day. Bye-bye.